I'm not pretty, may lord or bride whispered. Cowboy replied, That's fine, I need honest, not fancy. The sun was just beginning to rise over the wide Texas plains, painting the sky with soft pinks and oranges. A light wind stirred the tall grass, whispering secrets of the land. On the edge of the horizon, a small ranch appeared, with its weathered wooden fence and a barn that had seen many seasons. It was a quiet place, the kind where mornings started early and the work never ended. This was the life of Jackson Cole, a rugged cowboy who had lived on the land all his life. He knew the rhythm of the ranch, the calls of the cows, the sounds of the horses, the way the wind shifted before a storm. Today was different, though. Today, a visitor was coming to the ranch. Not a neighbor, not a distant cousin, but someone who had come from far away, a mail-order bride. Her journey had been long and tiring, traveling through airports, small towns, and endless roads, until finally she had arrived at the dusty gates of the Cole Ranch. Her name was Emily, and she carried with her a bundle of hopes, fears, and questions about what life would be like in this new place. Emily had never imagined she would live on a ranch. She had grown up in a small town in another country, where life was busy but calm in its own way. The thought of leaving everything familiar behind had been both exciting and terrifying. She clutched her small suitcase tightly, walking toward the wooden house that sat behind the barn. Her heart pounded with every step. What if I'm not enough? She whispered to herself. What if he doesn't like me? What if I can't do this? Jackson saw her from the porch, leaning on the railing, the morning sun warming his face. He was tall, strong, and quiet, with a presence that was calm but commanding. He had lived a life of work, responsibility, and solitude. He didn't expect much from anyone and certainly didn't expect someone like Emily to arrive at his doorstep. But when he looked at her, he didn't see a stranger. He saw honesty. She looked nervous, unsure, but real. That mattered more to him than anything else. As Emily approached, she slowed down, glancing at him nervously. I'm not pretty, she whispered, her voice small and trembling. It wasn't a question. It was a statement born from years of doubt and self-consciousness. She had always worried about being judged for her looks, worried she would never be enough for someone else. Jackson looked at her for a long moment, and then he smiled, not a grand, confident smile, but a gentle, honest one. That's fine, he said simply. I need honest, not fancy, Emily blinked. She hadn't expected that. The words were so simple, yet they carried a weight she had never felt before. She had prepared herself for disappointment, for criticism, for being told she wasn't enough. Instead, she was met with acceptance. The tension in her shoulders eased just a little. Maybe, she thought, maybe this could work. The porch creaked as Jackson stepped down to meet her, and Emily followed slowly. The air was filled with the smells of the ranch, the earthy scent of hay, the faint aroma of animals, and the warm, rich smell of the soil. It was different from the smells of her old home, but not unpleasant. There was a life here, raw and real, and somehow it felt grounding. They walked together toward the house, the silence between them comfortable rather than awkward. Emily kept glancing at the horses grazing nearby, at the fence that had been repaired countless times, at the old barn that had held so many memories. Jackson watched her, noticing the way she looked at everything carefully, the way she seemed to take it all in. She wasn't just timid. She was thoughtful, observant, willing to notice the small details that made the ranch what it was. Inside the house, Emily set her small suitcase on the floor. The house was simple, with wooden floors that creaked softly underfoot, a kitchen that smelled faintly of fresh bread, and a living room with a worn couch and a fireplace that had seen better days. It wasn't fancy, and she realized quickly that it didn't need to be. This was life as it was, honest, simple, and real. Jackson handed her a cup of coffee. Morning, he said. I thought you might like this before you get settled. Emily took the cup with both hands, feeling the warmth seep into her fingers. She sipped slowly, savoring the taste, and then looked at him. Thank you, she said softly. It's nice, he nodded. You'll get used to it. Life here isn't complicated. It's just work day after day, and sometimes it's hard, but it's real. Emily nodded, understanding that he meant more than the work. He was talking about honesty, about life without pretense, about a place where what mattered wasn't how you looked, but who you were and how you lived. Over the next few hours, Jackson showed her around the ranch. They walked past the chicken coop where the hens clucked softly. They stopped by the horse stables, where a gentle mare nickered at Emily as if sensing her nervousness. Jackson introduced her to the cows grazing in the distance, explaining the routines of feeding and care. Emily listened carefully, asking questions, sometimes fumbling over the tasks. She spilled a little feed here, tripped over a rope there, but Jackson didn't criticize. He corrected her gently, praised her effort, and reminded her that mistakes were part of learning. By the time the sun had risen higher in the sky, Emily was tired but curious. The ranch was big, and there was so much to learn. The work seemed endless, but it also seemed meaningful. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was part of something that mattered. That evening they sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the distant hills. The sky turned brilliant shades of orange and purple, and a soft breeze carried the sounds of the ranch, the lowing of cows, the creaking of the barn doors, the rustle of the wind in the grass. Emily felt a strange sense of peace, a calm she hadn't known for years. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. "I don't know if I can really live here, if I can be enough." Jackson looked at her, his eyes steady and sincere. "You don't have to be anything other than yourself," he said. "Honest, willing, real, that's enough. That's all I need." Emily smiled faintly, the tension in her chest easing. It was a small smile, but it felt like the beginning of something important. For the first time, she felt like she might belong somewhere, like she might be seen for who she really was. As night fell over the ranch, Emily lay in the small guest room, listening to the sounds of the land, the distant calls of animals, the wind through the trees, the quiet rhythm of the house. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the fears she had carried, and the unexpected kindness of a man who didn't care about appearances. She realized that perhaps life on the ranch wouldn't be easy, but it could be honest, grounding, and real. And for the first time in a long while, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to call this place home. Outside, Jackson stood on the porch, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the clear night sky. He thought about the day, about the new arrival, and about the quiet courage he saw in her. It wasn't about looks, charm, or fancy gestures. It was about honesty, willingness, and heart, and in that he saw something rare and worth cherishing. The ranch was quiet, the world calm, and the beginnings of a story, unspoken but powerful, were already taking shape between them. The next morning, Emily woke to the soft crowing of a rooster and the warm sunlight spilling through the window. The air smelled of earth, hay, and the faint aroma of breakfast cooking downstairs. It was her second day at the ranch, and although she felt nervous, she was determined to try. She wanted to show Jackson that she could do more than just arrive and look unsure. She wanted to be useful even if it was hard. As she descended the steps, she saw Jackson already outside, tending to the small garden near the house. His movements were calm but purposeful. He looked up when he noticed her, a small nod of acknowledgement. Emily smiled faintly and stepped onto the porch, taking a deep breath. "Morning," Jackson said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "You ready to help with the chores?" Emily nodded. "Yes, I want to learn." Jackson handed her a bucket and a small sack of feed. "We'll start with the chickens," he said. "It's simple, but it needs care. You spill too much and they get upset." Emily laughed softly, feeling a little more at ease. "I'll try not to spill," she said, and for a moment the nervousness faded. They walked to the chicken coop together. Emily's heart fluttered as she approached the noisy hens which clucked and flapped their wings. She hesitated for a moment, unsure how to proceed, but Jackson's calm presence gave her confidence. "Just pour a little at a time," he instructed, "and talk to them. Animals respond to your voice more than you think." Emily did as he said, speaking softly to the chickens as she poured the feed. Some pecked eagerly, others cautiously observed her, but none ran away. Jackson smiled, watching her patience and care. "You're doing fine," he said. "See, honest effort goes a long way." After finishing with the chickens, they moved on to the horses. Emily had always loved horses but had never worked with them closely. A gentle mare, her coat shiny and soft, nickered when Emily approached. She reached out carefully, stroking the animal's mane. Jackson showed her how to check the horse's hooves, clean them, and ensure the stall was tidy. Emily fumbled at first, dropping a brush or letting a hoof slip, but Jackson never criticized. He corrected her quietly with patience and praised her attempts. By midday, Emily's arms ached and sweat dampened her forehead, but she felt a sense of accomplishment. She had learned things she never imagined, small but important skills that connected her to the life on the ranch. She was tired, but there was pride in her exhaustion, a feeling she had not known for a long time. At lunch, they ate together on the porch. Jackson had prepared a simple meal, bread, cheese, and fresh fruit from the garden. They ate quietly at first, listening to the soft hum of the ranch. Then Emily spoke. "I didn't know I could do all this," she admitted. "I always thought I was useless, maybe." Jackson looked at her, his gaze steady. "It's not about what you thought you could do, it's about what you're willing to try, that's all that matters." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. His words were simple, but they meant so much. For years, she had judged herself by her fears, her insecurities, and the opinions of others. Here, she realized she was being judged not by appearance or perfection, but by effort and honesty. That felt liberating. The afternoon was spent repairing fences. The sun blazed overhead and the work was hard. Emily struggled to lift the heavy posts and stretch the wire, but Jackson was beside her, steady and encouraging. When she dropped a post or tangled the wire, he showed her patiently how to correct it. Slowly, she began to understand the rhythm of the work, the strength it required, and the satisfaction it brought when a section of fence was finally secure. Emily noticed the quiet way Jackson worked, the attention he paid to small details, and the way he treated every task with care. It was different from any life she had known. Here, work was meaningful and every effort had a purpose. She began to feel a connection not just to the ranch, but to the man who had chosen to live this way. As the sun began to lower in the sky, they tended to the cows. Emily had never been near cows before, and at first she felt nervous. They were much larger than she expected, and she worried about making a mistake. But Jackson guided her, showing her how to move calmly and confidently around the animals. "Cows respond to calmness," he explained. "If you panic, they panic. If you're steady, they're steady." Emily followed his instructions carefully, and slowly she began to relax. By the end of the afternoon, she had fed the cows and even helped milk a few of them. She was exhausted, covered in dust and sweat, but a smile spread across her face. She had done it. She had contributed. She had survived the hard work and even found joy in it. That evening, they gathered on the porch again, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. Emily leaned back in her chair, feeling the ache in her muscles, but also a strange sense of satisfaction. She had faced challenges she had never imagined, and she had learned more than just ranch skills. She had learned about herself. "I can't believe how much work this is," she said, laughing softly, "and how much I'm enjoying it at the same time." Jackson chuckled. "It's hard work, but it's honest work. There's satisfaction in it. You learn to respect the land and everything that lives on it." Emily nodded. "I think I understand now. It's different from anything I've ever known, but it feels right." Over the next few days, Emily began to find her rhythm. She woke early with the sun, learned the routines, and started to anticipate the tasks of the day. She noticed small things, the way the chickens preferred a certain spot in the coop, how the horses reacted to different voices, how the cows settled when the wind shifted. She started to feel like she belonged, like she was a part of the ranch rather than an outsider looking in. Jackson noticed the change too. He saw the effort she put in, the care she showed, and the honesty in her attempts. He didn't expect perfection, and she didn't give it, but he saw something more important, her willingness to try, to learn, and to adapt. That mattered more than anything. One afternoon, Emily found herself struggling with a stubborn horse. The animal refused to follow her lead, tossing its head and stepping back. Emily's heart raced, and she felt frustration rising. Jackson came to her side quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Calm yourself," he said softly. "The horse will feel your calm, breathe, and try again." Emily did as he instructed. She took a deep breath, spoke softly to the horse, and moved slowly. Gradually, the horse responded, walking alongside her as she guided it to the stable. Relief and pride filled her. She had faced a challenge, listened, and succeeded. Jackson smiled, a quiet approval in his eyes that made her chest swell with satisfaction. As the sun set and the sky darkened, Emily sat on the porch with Jackson. The evening was cool, the air crisp, and the sounds of the ranch settled around them. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She realized that life on the ranch was not easy, but it was real. There were struggles, yes, but there were also rewards. And more importantly, there was honesty in work, in effort, and in heart. Emily glanced at Jackson. He was quiet, watching the horizon, a calm presence in the fading light. She felt gratitude for him, not just for accepting her, but for showing her that life could be honest and fulfilling. "Thank you," she said softly. Jackson looked at her, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You're welcome," he said simply. "You're learning. That's what counts." For the first time, Emily felt hope, not a fragile hope, but a steady, growing belief that she could belong here, that she could be part of this life and this land. She had faced fears, learned new skills, and discovered strength she didn't know she had. And she had done it with someone who valued honesty above all else. As night fell, Emily lay in bed, her body sore but her mind clear. She thought about the day, about the animals, the work, and Jackson's steady guidance. She realized that she had begun to love the rhythm of the ranch, the early mornings, the long days, the quiet satisfaction of a job done well. And she realized that she was beginning to trust herself, to believe that she could succeed and that she could belong. Outside, the ranch was quiet under the starlit sky. Jackson walked the grounds, checking fences and listening to the land. He thought about Emily, about her effort and determination, about the small victories she had achieved. He didn't need her to be perfect or fancy. All he needed was honesty, heart, and willingness. And in that, he saw something rare and valuable. Emily's journey was just beginning, but already she felt a connection to the land, to the life she was learning, and to the man who had welcomed her without judgment. It was the start of something real, something honest, and something worth cherishing. Days passed on the ranch, and Emily began to feel more like she belonged. Each morning, she woke before sunrise, the cool air carrying the scent of earth and animals. She moved with a growing confidence, knowing what tasks awaited her and how to approach them. She no longer hesitated at the barn doors or fretted over the cows' moods. She had learned their rhythms and even felt a quiet joy in anticipating their needs. Jackson noticed the change too. He had watched her progress from a timid, unsure young woman into someone who worked alongside him with determination and care. Her hands were roughened by the chores, and her clothes bore the dust of the ranch, but Jackson didn't see that as a flaw. He saw honesty and effort, a heart willing to learn. One afternoon, Emily decided to take on a task she had avoided before, mending a broken section of fence near the northern pasture. The wind had torn loose some of the posts, and the wire had sagged. Jackson had shown her how to do it before, but now she wanted to try it on her own. She carried the posts, set them upright, and began stretching the wire. At first, her movements were clumsy, and the wire slipped from her hands more than once. Frustration prickled at her chest. She felt the familiar fear of failure rising. Jackson approached quietly, his presence calm and steady. "Take it slow," he said gently. "One step at a time. You've done this before, you know how." Emily exhaled and nodded. She focused on the task, listening to his advice but trusting her own hands. Slowly, the fence took shape. The wire was taut, the posts firm. When she stepped back, she felt a surge of pride. She had done it. She had faced a challenge alone and succeeded. Jackson watched her with a small, approving smile. "You did well," he said simply. "That's exactly what counts, effort and honesty." Emily smiled, her confidence growing. She realized that life on the ranch was not just about physical strength. It was about persistence, learning, and heart. Every task completed was a small victory, and every mistake was an opportunity to learn. She had begun to understand that the land demanded respect, but it also offered rewards to those willing to give effort. That evening, they worked together to feed the horses. Emily led a mare she had grown particularly fond of, speaking softly as she guided it to the stall. Jackson walked beside her, watching, and Emily felt a quiet sense of comfort in his presence. It wasn't about words or grand gestures. It was about trust, support, and shared understanding. After the chores were done, they sat on the porch, the sky a brilliant canvas of oranges and purples as the sun began to set. Emily felt a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. Her muscles ached, her hands were calloused, but she felt alive in a way she hadn't before. She had faced challenges, learned new skills, and discovered inner strength. Jackson leaned back, watching her with thoughtful eyes. "You've changed," he said quietly. "I can see it in the way you move, the way you approach the work. You're not the same as when you arrived." Emily looked at him, surprised by the observation. I think I'm learning," she admitted. "I'm still afraid sometimes, but I feel stronger, like I can handle things now." Jackson nodded. "That's good. Fear doesn't go away, it just becomes smaller when you face it." Over the next few days, Emily continued to gain confidence. She learned to handle unexpected situations, the sudden stampede of cows, a frightened horse, or a broken water trough. Each time she felt the nervousness in her chest, but she faced it, remembering Jackson's words about calmness, patience, and honesty. She realized that strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about acting even when you were. One afternoon, as they were repairing a section of fence near the far pasture, a small accident occurred. Emily misjudged the wire tension and the fence snapped back, grazing her arm. She cried out, startled, and the sudden pain made her heart race. Jackson rushed to her side, checking her arm carefully. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. Emily nodded, though her arm throbbed. "I'm fine," she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. Jackson shook his head gently. "It's okay to feel scared or hurt. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. You learn from it and move on." Emily looked at him, grateful for his patience and understanding. She realized that part of life on the ranch, and part of life itself, was accepting mistakes and challenges without letting them define you. Jackson wasn't expecting perfection. He was expecting effort and honesty, and that made her feel valued in a way she had never known. As they finished the repairs together, Emily found herself laughing despite the pain. The mare she had been leading nuzzled her gently, and she realized that connection mattered, not just with animals, but with people too. Jackson's quiet guidance and steady presence had helped her feel capable, even in difficult situations. That evening, Emily and Jackson shared a quiet dinner in the kitchen. The room was simple, with warm light casting soft shadows on the walls. Emily had prepared part of the meal herself, feeling proud of her growing independence. They ate slowly, talking about the day, sharing small observations, and learning more about each other. "You've learned fast," Jackson said, smiling faintly. "Most people give up before they get this far," Emily blushed. "I don't know, I just want to try. I want to be part of this place, part of this life." Jackson nodded. "That's all anyone can ask for. Effort and honesty, that's enough." The conversation shifted to lighter topics. They spoke of the weather, of the animals' quirks, and of stories from their past. Emily shared memories from her childhood, the town she had left behind, and the life she had imagined for herself. Jackson shared tales of growing up on the ranch, the lessons he had learned from his father, and the quiet pride he took in the land. Through these conversations, Emily began to see Jackson not just as a mentor or guide, but as a person with depth, humor, and understanding. She felt a growing respect and admiration for him, not just for his strength and skill, but for his patience, honesty, and kindness. The days continued to pass in a rhythm of work and learning. Emily became more adept at handling the animals, more confident in her tasks, and more comfortable in the space around her. She started noticing the small details, the way the light hit the barn in the morning, the sounds of the wind through the trees, the patterns of the stars at night. She felt a connection to the land, a sense of belonging that had been missing from her life before. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the fields, Emily spoke softly. "I never thought I could feel this at home somewhere. I've always felt like I didn't belong." Jackson looked at her, his expression calm and sincere. "Belonging isn't about where you are or what you look like. It's about who you are and what you give. You belong because you're honest and willing. That's what matters." Emily felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of peace she hadn't known for years. She realized that life on the ranch wasn't easy, but it was honest, grounding, and rewarding. She was no longer just a visitor. She was becoming part of the land, part of the rhythm, and part of something larger than herself. Then came a challenge that tested both her skills and her courage. A sudden storm rolled in one afternoon, dark clouds gathering quickly over the plains. Rain fell in sheets, the wind howled, and the animals grew restless. Emily felt a surge of panic, but Jackson's calm voice guided her. "Focus on the work, stay with the animals, and stay calm. You know what to do." Emily followed his instructions, leading the horses to shelter and checking the fences to prevent damage. She worked quickly and carefully, relying on everything she had learned. By the time the storm passed, she was soaked, exhausted, and covered in mud, but she had managed to protect the animals and keep the ranch intact. Jackson clapped her shoulder, smiling despite the rain. "You did well," he said. "You stayed calm, worked through it, and handled things perfectly. That's not easy to do." Emily smiled, dripping wet but proud. She had faced fear, worked under pressure, and succeeded. For the first time, she felt a real sense of strength, not just physical but inner strength, the kind that comes from facing challenges and overcoming them. As night fell and the storm passed, Emily sat by the fire in the living room, drying her clothes and warming herself. She thought about the past weeks, about the growth she had experienced, and about the trust she had built with Jackson. She realized that life on the ranch was more than work. It was learning, adapting, and discovering resilience within herself. Jackson joined her by the fire, handing her a towel. They sat in comfortable silence, the crackle of the flames filling the room. Emily felt a sense of gratitude for him, not just for teaching her, but for seeing her for who she was, beyond fear, doubt, or insecurity. She had come to the ranch feeling unsure, timid, and self-conscious. Now she felt capable, connected, and even proud. She had learned the value of honesty, effort, and heart. She had discovered her own strength. And she had begun to trust that she could belong here, not because she was perfect, but because she was herself. The morning sun rose slowly over the Texas plains, casting golden light across the ranch. Emily woke early, her muscles sore from the storm the night before, but a sense of calm filled her chest. She had faced challenges, learned new skills, and discovered strength she didn't know she had. More importantly, she had begun to feel that this place, this ranch, these animals, this life, was hers as much as Jackson's. After breakfast, she stepped outside and found Jackson already working in the garden. He looked up as she approached, offering a small smile. "Morning," he said. "Ready for the day?" Emily nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yes, let's get started." The morning passed quickly as they moved through their routines together. Emily fed the chickens, tended to the horses, and helped mend fences, each task feeling easier than before. She noticed how natural the work had become, how the rhythm of the ranch now matched her own heartbeat. She moved with confidence, guiding the animals calmly, lifting heavy posts with growing strength, and completing chores efficiently. Jackson watched her from time to time, his expression thoughtful. He had seen her grow in so many ways, physically, emotionally, and mentally. She was no longer timid and unsure. She was capable, willing, and honest. She had faced fears, handled challenges, and learned the value of effort and patience. And in that, he saw someone who belonged here, not just on the ranch, but in his life. As they worked near the far pasture, a group of neighbors arrived unexpectedly. They had heard about Emily's arrival and were curious to meet the new mail-order bride. Emily felt a familiar pang of nervousness. She straightened her back and wiped her hands on her jeans, trying to look confident. Jackson introduced her with quiet pride. "This is Emily," he said. "She's learning the ranch life. She's been working hard and doing well." The neighbors looked at her skeptically at first, but Emily spoke politely, answering questions about the ranch and the work she had done. Slowly, their expressions softened. They saw her effort, her honesty, and her willingness to adapt to a life that was completely new to her. By the time they left, Emily felt a sense of accomplishment. She had faced judgment, handled it with grace, and proven herself without needing to impress anyone with looks or charm. After the neighbors left, Emily and Jackson sat on the porch, sharing a quiet moment. Emily felt a mix of exhaustion and pride. "I think I understand now," she said softly. "Life here is hard, but it's honest, and that makes it feel worth it." Jackson nodded, looking at her with warmth. "That's right, honesty, effort, heart, that's what matters here. Not appearances, not perfection, just being real and willing." Emily felt a lump in her throat. For so long, she had worried about being pretty enough or enough in general. Here with Jackson, she realized that what truly mattered was her heart, her honesty, and her willingness to try. And for the first time, she felt truly seen. The afternoon brought another challenge. A calf had wandered too close to the creek, and its mother was anxious. Emily grabbed a rope and, following Jackson's instructions, carefully guided the calf back to safety. Her hands shook slightly, but she remained calm, speaking softly to the animals. When the calf was safe, she breathed a sigh of relief, and Jackson clapped her gently on the shoulder. "You handled that well," he said. "You stayed calm and steady. That's what counts." Emily smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. She had faced fear, acted with care, and succeeded. She realized that this was what life on the ranch, and in general, was about. Facing challenges with honesty and courage, and learning to trust yourself along the way. As evening approached, the sky glowing with shades of pink and orange, Emily and Jackson returned to the house. They cooked a simple meal together, sharing stories and laughter. Emily had grown more confident in the kitchen too, and Jackson watched her with quiet appreciation. He didn't need her to be perfect or fancy. He needed her to be real, and that was exactly who she had become. After dinner, they stepped outside onto the porch. The air was cool, carrying the scent of the land after the storm. Emily looked out over the fields, feeling a sense of peace and belonging. She realized that she had grown in ways she hadn't anticipated. She was stronger, braver, and more capable. She had discovered her own worth, not defined by appearances or fears, but by honesty, effort, and heart. Jackson joined her, handing her a cup of warm tea. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. Emily felt a quiet happiness settle over her. She had come to the ranch uncertain and afraid, and now she felt at home, not because the land had changed, but because she had changed. She had learned to trust herself and embrace who she was. "I never thought I could feel this safe," Emily admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson looked at her, his eyes steady and sincere. "You're safe because you belong here, and you belong because of who you are, not what anyone thinks you should be." Emily's chest swelled with emotion. For so long she had doubted herself, worried about fitting in, about being enough. Now she realized that she had found a place where honesty mattered more than appearances, and heart mattered more than perfection. She felt a deep gratitude for Jackson, not just for his guidance, but for seeing her for who she truly was. Over the next few days, life on the ranch continued in its steady rhythm. Emily and Jackson worked side by side, handling chores, caring for the animals, and tending to the land. Emily's confidence continued to grow, and she began to take initiative, noticing tasks that needed attention before Jackson mentioned them. She learned to anticipate problems, think creatively, and work efficiently. The ranch had become not just a place to live, but a place to grow, to learn, and to thrive. One afternoon, Emily was mending the roof of the barn when she paused to look at the fields. The sun was high, the wind gentle, and the animals moved calmly across the land. She felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that went beyond physical work. She had faced fears, learned new skills, and discovered strength within herself. She had found belonging and acceptance in a place she never expected to call home. Jackson climbed up beside her, offering a hand to steady her. "You're doing well," he said. "Better than I expected." Emily laughed softly. "I've learned from the best," she replied. Jackson smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made her heart flutter. It wasn't about romance yet, not exactly, but it was about trust, respect, and mutual admiration. Emily realized that she had come to care deeply for him, not just for his guidance, but for his character, his patience, and his honesty. That evening, as the sun set and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Emily and Jackson sat on the porch once more. Emily leaned back, her hands clasped around a warm cup of tea. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had found a place where she could be herself, where honesty and effort mattered more than anything else. "I'm glad I came here," she said softly. "I was scared at first, but now I feel like I belong." Jackson looked at her, his expression calm and sincere. "You do belong, and you always will as long as you stay honest and true to yourself." Emily smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. She had come to the ranch uncertain, timid, and self-conscious. Now she was confident, capable, and strong. She had discovered her own worth and learned to trust herself. And most importantly, she had found someone who saw her for who she truly was and valued her honesty above all else. As night fell over the ranch, Emily and Jackson continued to sit together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The land was quiet, peaceful, and full of life. Emily realized that she had found more than a home. She had found belonging, acceptance, and the beginnings of love that was built on trust, respect, and honesty. She thought back to the moment she first arrived when she had whispered, "I'm not pretty." She remembered Jackson's simple reply, "That's fine, I need honest, not fancy." Those words had carried her through the past weeks, guiding her, encouraging her, and helping her grow. She realized now that they weren't just about her appearance, they were about life, effort, and heart. Emily had faced fears, worked hard, learned new skills, and discovered inner strength. She had proven to herself that she was capable and worthy, not because she looked a certain way, but because she was honest, willing, and true to herself. She had found acceptance, connection, and a sense of belonging that went deeper than she had ever imagined. And as she looked at Jackson, sitting quietly beside her, she knew that she had also found trust, respect, and the beginnings of a bond that could grow into something lasting and meaningful. It wasn't about appearances, charm, or perfection. It was about heart, honesty, and the willingness to try. And in that, Emily had found everything she had been searching for. The ranch was quiet, the stars twinkled overhead, and the world felt right. Emily knew that life would not always be easy, but it would be real, honest, and full of meaning. She had found her place, her strength, and her home. And for the first time, she felt completely at peace.